Hey everybody, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Kayla.
We love movies.
And talking about them.
This is the Martini Window. Joining us today, we have a prop master and just all-around cool guy with such credits as Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, SNOWPIERCER, and the upcoming Dead Boy Detectives on Netflix. We have Mr. Justin DeLima. Justin, thank you for coming to the show.
Hey folks, thanks for having me on. Yeah. I'll maintain those shows I didn't prop master on, though I did prop master this one movie, Freaks, in 2017.
Freaks with Zach Apostolski and Adam Stein.
Yeah.
New Final Destination.
Are they?
Yeah, the new Final Destination 6.
Fantastic. More work for those guys.
I know. Hopefully for us too. It's shooting in Vancouver, so here's hoping.
Yeah. Get us here. Come on.
Oh my God. Justin, tell us a little about yourself.
My name's Justin. I grew up in the great little town of Mission, BC, here in Canada. Fell in love with TV movies as a kid. You know, all those sick days that you have a special features DVD or something like that, and you just spend 14 hours, watching Lord of the Rings behind the scenes. Yeah, that's about how it started. I got my start doing some Hallmark MOWs, and then crept up ever since. And now here I am in the middle of a writers and actors strike. But you know what? We make do.
I actually have a bit of a history here with Justin. Justin and I grew up in the same town, went to the same school. We, I wouldn't say we got started in film together, but we definitely did film together. I would say, yeah. People can't see you nod, Justin.
I'm nodding to you. I'm nodding to you. Yeah.
No, So, Justin for a very long time. It's wonderful to have him on the show. And, of course, with our schedules nowadays, it takes a industry-ending strike in order to get you here.
That's just how it is. The last 3 years have been the busiest I think I've ever been. I mean, once we got back online, it was just like go, shoot everything you can after the good old panini. But
I don't know if I ever told you this, but when we were shooting Girl Gone Bad, we wrapped, and I thought I had like 3 weeks until the Flash was going to start back up. What was that? I think we were at home. Kill and I were at home for probably a good 3 hours before I got a call from one of the other guys saying, "Hey, so Another Life on Netflix. You're going to start up tomorrow. We need a playback guy." So I ended up having about 20 hours off, but there were 30 hours off between directing the guy or going to learn how to do playback in this whole new world of, coronavirus. We're still building protocols. They're still finessing them and stuff like that. That was the era.
They still weren't sure if they were going to pay people for testing days or what even that protocol was in the first place. If you test beforehand, if you just test on Sunday.
Yeah. And I was in the era where it's we know it's 34 degrees right now, but you guys cannot be in a lunch tank. You're going to sit outside one by one. Don't even look at each other. That will cause coronavirus.
Oh, God.
What about just wave at my friend at the other truck? Well, do you want to cause coronavirus?
Those were wild days. Those were wild days. Remember when people were polishing doorknobs and stuff like that?
Yeah. Oh, God. That lasted all of about a month, though. I noticed on the shows I was on, that level of care did not last. I remember them coming in with me disinfecting guns after every single scene.
Oh, those things! Oh my God!
And then it turned out those things blow up.
Dealing with COVID for costumes was insane because even little tools you'll pull out, we had to sanitize every single thing each time we touched it during and after.
Oh my God!
Every single thing we pulled out of our kit, we were being so careful.
Yeah.
And makeup also, right?
Oh man, yeah, makeup had a whole other world going on.
I imagine they wore hazmat suits in the trailers at all times because, how else do you keep, you're right by someone's mouth the whole time. Oh, my God.
I kind of feel like that would have to be the case. We should ask a makeup person about this. We should have a makeup person on the show and ask them about this.
I think the theory was that if you're on a show or a costume or makeup team and you're a regular there, you are the bubble because you're spending so long with each other. So most teams work together really well and have accountability, and I'm sure depending on each team, they will choose their comfort level because they're essentially trusting each other because they're kind of quarantining with each other at work.
Yeah, exactly. That's also assuming both the artist and the actor are in favor of protocols and distancing and masking.
In the beginning, that didn't matter though.
That's true. They would be watched like a hawk at the beginning. And it's funny you mentioned the costumes with COVID, because one thing I was actually looking forward to is hearing your take on the costumes in the supplement movie, which is Mrs. Doubtfire, the 1994 Chris Columbus film starring Robin Williams, Sally Field, and a pre-Bond Pierce Brosnan. Justin, can you kind of enlighten us a little bit why you decided to go with this movie for this episode?
Well, I think like a lot of us in the film industry, I was a child of divorce. So as kind of like a touchstone to understand that experience as a kid, because like, what guides do you really get unless your parents really sit you down and like walk you through. And even then, that comes from a whole different level of bias. Between Robin Williams's and Sally Field's performance over that movie, I think it gave me a stepping stone to understanding kind of what was going on past, oh, they don't love each other anymore, and now we're gonna have two houses, right? Yeah, so like, well, I'll get into that point later on in the movie, but like as a touchdown, that's kind of it for me. It was between this or Jurassic Park, and I love Jurassic Park. Just saw it yesterday at the Vancouver Symphony Orchestra. Oh my god, those guys are great. But I wanted to talk about something that was like a little bit more personal and like and doesn't generally get covered on these kind of things. You know, how many people will cover, you know, Jurassic Park and its wild influences on the industry and how perfectly written that film is, and you know, all that, versus how many people are going to go talk about, you know, Mrs. Doubtfire on a podcast. So it's closer and further to the heart for me at the same time.
That makes sense.
I don't have a Mrs. Doubtfire tattoo. I have a Jurassic Park tattoo, but like, it's close. It's close.
We actually watched Death to Smoochie recently as well.
Oh my god, yeah.
For this podcast.
And one thing I noticed is it's obviously not Death to Smoochie levels of unhinged Robin Williams, but I did notice it's a very similar character arc. It's a child. It's a man who is dealing with his demons, and he doesn't have control of himself, and he loses everything, and then he re-finds himself through hilarity and through a bunch of like really crazy actions, and comes to a place at the end where he understands. And having
to play a full suit role at the same time. Okay, yeah, I like the parallels in that. Yeah.
But even at the end of Death to Smoochie, his character development at the end is they let him be on the show, but he accepts their relationship.
Yeah.
So I saw the similarities in this. He plays a very theatrical, upset man dealing with his process and coming to acceptance at the end of it.
Yeah, and just kind of starting off on that, you know, the opening scene of this movie where you have Robin Williams, Daniel, inside of the recording booth, and he's doing the ADR over the animation. Which, by the way, I just want to point out
that's an anime.
No, I want to point out this was in fact ADR.
Yeah,
I know this because in the world of voice acting, the voice recording comes before the animation.
Yes.
In this particular case, he was trying to record over the animation itself, and he even heard, here he goes again, blah, blah, blah. This studio is costing us thousands right now because it was booked for an ADR session. And I want to assume that's what it is, because I would hope at this point they would have some level of realism, but hey, maybe I'll look out for those things. But what I did notice about that is that when he's doing the whole bit where the bird starts smoking a cigarette, and you see him do the whole, oh my god, and you know, the whole choking away the cigarette and all that. This is a very early signal to see just how dedicated to children he actually is, and how dedicated to his children. Like throughout the whole process of this movie, I mean, you have a guy who clearly, through, I'm not going to say by any means what he did was right,
but because also on that other side of that, he's taking a risk at work that will get him not employed. So like on one end, yes, he's like, oh, I don't want to like represent smoking out and about, and hey, can we change this?
Yeah.
But on the other side, he's telling people that are paying him to be there, oh, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah.
And he's not providing livelihood at the same time.
And there's two sides to that coin.
Exactly. Right? But this movie is so great, I think, about balancing those two sides. I mean, like between his character and Sally Field's, you know, you really understand both of their perspectives. Neither of them is treated as a bad guy. Both of them are just two people that are trying to navigate life around each other.
Yeah.
And just realizing they're just not working for all the reasons. It's because they haven't been able to like see each other on either side, right?
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
And it's actually very interesting in the movie where when he becomes Mrs. Doubtfire, he learns to cook. He does everything she's been asking for. He actually listens to her when she talks about their marriage and how she didn't want to be that person, and it's not about him, it's about how she felt about herself.
He's able to discipline his kids in a balanced way that like I don't think he'd ever done before, type thing. It makes him a better person. I had the thought of, I don't know how many people listening to this have like read early era Lee Ditko Spider-Man, but Peter Parker was kind of a shit person in those early days.
Yep.
And like Like, he was like a vengeful nerd. He like wanted to get revenge on his bullies. He wanted to like get the fame and fortune. And it was only through taking on an alternate persona he was able to go like, oh shit, there's some things myself that like I need to go fix, that he didn't realize until he had to go play that role, right? And that same character arc actually happens here in a lot of ways. I think Daniel's able to see all these ways that he's, you know, failed himself, failed his family, failed his relationships by playing this role, even though it's a bit of a psychotic setup type thing. You're gonna create this entirely new person to go, but we'll get into that.
I mean, the fact that this exact same movie could play as a thriller without changing any of the plot points.
Absolutely. Yes.
The teeth scene?
Including the teeth scene.
Including the teeth scene, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess getting on track. So for those of you not familiar with the movie, Robin Williams plays a voice actor. He gets fired in his first scene that you see him. Again, establishes how much he cares about his family and how much he cares about his kids. He obviously has a blind eye with his wife, which we get into. He gets fired that same day, runs this giant party that makes him look like the fun parent, and then Sally Fields comes in, finding a whole crew of livestock in a completely ruined, beautiful house. It's like she's an interior designer type person. Like, everything in there is immaculate once we get back to it later in the movie. It's just completely trashed. They realize how far apart they are, and they end up having a divorce. I'm gonna put that down. So we step into this bit where she gets full custody minus Saturdays. But he has to figure out how to get his life back together now. He was a voice actor, but he's, out of work now. As a contract worker. Yep, get where you're coming from, Robin.
Oh yeah.
But so he tries to get work through this caseworker, I guess. I forget who she's played by, but she's very much like, I'm not sure being a voice actor is a very employable skill, but like you go ahead and do whatever. He eventually gets employment at this TV station where he ships reels all day. Not connected to the art of it all. He's just just passing through while he's having to be at a TV station.
And he doesn't even think he's going for a job with reels. He walks in and he's like, will this be my stage?
Yeah.
And his boss is like, no, you're shipping things. Go back to the closet.
He comes into the job, very entitled out the front, just going like, oh yeah, it'll be exactly how I expect. And like, I think that's another big piece of the arc that he gets, that bit of humble pie that's like, no, you gotta work up to there. Yeah. If an idea even get up there. But during all of this, during a chance encounter, well, not a chance encounter, but just his wife is his ex-wife is picking up the kids, and sees that she's looking for a nanny around the house because no one was taking care of the house, which begs my question: was he doing the housekeeping before anyways, or was she doing it all and is taking on more work? But I digress. She's looking for a housekeeper. He changes the number on the newspaper ad as it's going out, and he calls her a couple times with different voices, extending his skills as a character.
In a very funny sequence of impressions, if I'm being honest.
Yes.
That succession. I actually thought to myself too, because they have Robin Williams in the same chair for one of it.
Yeah.
And I have to think to myself, how long is the original take of that scene? How long did Christopher Columbus have 4 cameras on Robin Williams and just have him go ham on a bunch of fake voices and pick up which ones were going to be the best? Because you could tell when you see that all of Sally Fields' reactions are just like, okay, you could tell that Christopher Columbus said, okay, make it sound like something loud just happened on the phone. No, she doesn't do a lot of like detailed voice reactions, which is similar to like, a show like Letterkenny. If anybody watches Letterkenny, there's a situation there with character Shorzy. Every single time the hockey players are beaking back and forth with Shorzy.
It's a very detailed back and forth.
But all they're ever doing though with the hockey players is just, hey, you Shorzy, and that's all they ever say, because they point the camera back where you can't see Shorzy's face, and they add literally all of it in post.
Oh, okay.
So they never know what they're responding to. I know we had somebody on the show here actually who worked on Letterkenny, and I spoke with him about that before the show and all that. So I find it hilarious because that whole scene, part of me wishes I could see the full take of that.
Yeah. I can't understate how transformative Robin's voice is throughout this movie. Even like all these like little bit characters are like completely unrecognizable, and unless you're seeing his face. he was a master of his craft, and like without
I could watch him talk about a bagel for 5 hours.
Yeah.
Because he'd talk as 10 different people. while he's talking. He'd have a whole podcast to his own and like make it a whole. It's just
Oh man, a world that we live in where we don't get to have a Robin Williams podcast. That was like, I just think to myself, like, have you ever listened to Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend?
Yeah.
There is another timeline out there, I hope, where Robin Williams did not unfortunately leave our Earth. Because I would listen to what would probably end up being a 6-hour episode of that show if he had Robin Williams on. You know what I mean? Like, I think about Robin Williams quite often, and I've talked about this before on the show. I'm going to say it again. We talk about these people as being masters of their time, some of the greats of comedy, something like that. And I take it a step further with Robin Williams. Robin Williams is one person I'll take this a step further with, where I don't think Robin Williams is one of the greatest comedic minds of his generation. I think he's one of the greatest comedic minds since Shakespeare. I will stand onto this, that when we look at the history of people going all the way back to Shakespeare and going all the way back to the court jesters, and we hear about these hilarious humorists of the 1700s, obviously, but we hear about the humorous plays, and like, you know, back in the Shakespearean era, Midsummer Night's Dream was a hilarious comedy.
Yeah.
And so I think about these things. I don't really see Robin Williams as just the best of his generation.
But his words don't do him justice. Words don't do the amount of work he did, his level of craft.
He was
any justice.
Alien. And I don't know.
Yeah.
And it's like, of course, he was also actually an alien in Mork and Mindy. Which apparently he even got that role because he decided to do the entire audition inverted on its chair and made up a bunch of stuff and never actually did any of the dialogue. And they hired him for the show. Yeah. Well, originally he was for the one episode in Happy Days, which was a dream sequence, which is how Mork and Mindy came to be.
Right.
It was true. Mork and Mindy was a Happy Days spinoff.
You also mentioned when we were watching this, Kevin, that when they were filming Mrs. Doubtfire, they did the Robin shot.
Yeah.
The Robin takes.
Yeah. And what I was going to say, though, is that with that audition of Mork and Mindy, Gary Marshall ended up casting Robin Williams because he said, of all the people who came into this audition, he was the only one who was actually an alien.
Yeah.
And that's...
and I think in terms of how he worked, he was always adding to a scene, right?
Yeah.
Like other people were considered for this role, but I can't imagine anyone else taking on this challenge.
Tim Allen was offered the role,
which makes no sense to me. I could not imagine Tim Allen convincing me he was actually a different person under that makeup.
The problem is, if it was Tim Allen, I don't expect Tim Allen's comedy to be anything other than, hey, look at me, I'm a guy dressed as a woman. You know what I mean?
100%.
Robin Williams. This is what I'm saying about Williams. And what Kayla said about the Williams take, Chris Columbus talked about this, how they had a lot of these scenes could be going on for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 takes until Robin felt it was perfect. He was a producer on the movie. Let's bear that in mind. So they would always do that, and they would do was called the Robin take, the Williams take, where they said, "Oh, he doesn't improv; he just plays." And he described shooting these scenes like a documentary, where you would have 4 cameras on Robin Williams because they're like, whatever he's gonna do, we need 4 angles of it because he's not gonna do it again. Yeah, and a lot of that stuff ends up being the funniest stuff in the movie. So a lot of stuff they made up, like the whole bit where he's sitting next to Pierce Brosnan and he's making all his euphemisms for sex, and that whole scene was ad-libbed by Robin Williams trying to crack Pierce Brosnan.
100%. And he didn't.
And the teeth. Did you know the teeth was Robin Williams improv?
Really?
The teeth in the drink was a freaking improv. And Pierce Brosnan just went with it and started taking all this stuff out. But that was
one of the most iconic pieces of the movie. Just came out as because everyone talks about the cake splattering in the teeth.
Yeah, now
which is such like a minor thing compared to something like that.
Also,
like
hilarious when you realize how he's working through that.
Yes, yeah. Well, also, like, let's not forget, he was an improv artist. He was like a street performer guy before he ever got a role in Hollywood, right?
Yeah.
You know, he was doing all that. So, like, just rolling with it and just being in the flow of, like, this is my one performance, and I give it to you, and it's released. You know, I'm sure he does rehearsals just fine, but I mean, like, that's where you get the best stuff, where he's just like, I'm again just playing around type thing. You know,
what I love about the going back to the scene with the cake on the face is at the end of this, like, he's obviously hilarious. He's always going to be hilarious. But I love that the social worker puts it on her face. Is it a small understated like punctuation to like just finish the joke?
Especially when you know that was improv. That was improv because that was never supposed to drop in her cup. That was the
The stage lights just going at it. What's
Going
that?
at it.
Yeah.
And Williams just ran with it. And again, this the woman he was talking to too, the social worker, same thing, just went with it. And it's like the echelon of comedy talent in this movie. And even people like Harvey Fierstein as his brother. One thing I thought was really interesting is when Kayla and I were watching this, I pointed out, in this era, anytime you had a gay couple, it was often like, oh, they're just really fun roommates. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
but what I loved about this, and also The Birdcage by Robin Williams,
Yes.
he had no problem
Yes.
looking that horse right in the mouth and being like, no, it is a gay couple. They are gay men. They do gay things. You know what I mean? Like, he had no problem make that point clear. The Birdcage, obviously. Have you seen Birdcage, Kayla?
I have not.
Fantastic movie. I hope somebody picks it for this podcast. Anybody listening?
His brother's husband is also called Auntie.
Auntie Jack.
Yeah. At least that's how the kids understand the whole thing, because I think that's how one would translate to kids
In that
at
era,
the time, right? Absolutely. That's
That
the
era,
thing,
who knows? And I mean, hey, I'm not going to knock this movie for trying to make these strides. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In 1994,
Absolutely, yeah.
like the AIDS crisis in America, and it's like,
And here they were presenting a gay couple just as is,
just as is,
which
Just
is
as
like
is.
I think the best representation you can ask for at the time. So
Yeah, yeah. I agree with you completely. But Harvey Fierstein was great in this, though. I got to make that point earlier. I cannot believe I forgot he was on Broadway. It makes even more sense why he playing this character. in this movie.
Exactly. So invigorating this drag role on the stage, and then being the one to help build this drag role on film, right?
Yeah.
And that's just such a great sequence where they're just playing with all these other characters. It lets Robin just like play with all these other voices in the moment type thing and try all these other looks. Yeah.
There's this one ad lib that he has that absolutely destroyed me in that scene.
Yeah.
When they're putting on all the new wigs and trying out.
Yeah.
They have this one where he looks particularly like a Jewish woman. Like that was the look they were going for.
Oh,
right?
I look like a booby, or is what he says. Something like
he
that.
says that thing where he says, "Oh, never get grain from Lyon. It's always so chewy." Grain is fried chicken skin, and Mion is a religious person in the Jewish faith who does circumcisions. So, and that was an ad lib win partway through.
Oh my god. I've never. Okay, yeah. Huh. That's amazing. Yeah.
So in this movie, like he's putting on this stuff. Where it was, oh, Norman Bates. Okay, like that. Moments like that.
Yeah.
And Kayla hadn't seen Psycho, so I had to like pause and because she was wondering why I was laughing so hard at that. It's like
because the way
I know about Psycho.
right, but you told me you had to see this.
No, but I understand what Norman Bates is. I've grown up in the world where people have discussed Psycho. I went to film school. We discussed Psycho.
I also went to film school.
I didn't. But yeah, and it's just it's funny to go like, oh yeah, let's reference this horror thing in the middle of this like comedy type thing. It's just I don't know. His sense
solid,
of just,
man. Like what was funniest in that moment.
Yeah.
We're talking about a guy like when he did a Weapon of Self-Destruction, his last live tour he ever did. When he did that, he didn't have anything written for jokes. He had a list of topics.
He would just go at it, yeah.
And apparently he didn't even make it through the list a lot of times. He would be making up new shit sometimes on the stage. And he'd just be like, this was Robin Williams, though, man. Like, there's a reason why everything this guy's improv will be 10 times funnier than whatever you're writing.
He's never recycling, or he never recycled content. He just, I don't know, just went as it.
He didn't. And they tried to make a sequel to Mrs. Doubtfire for so long, and they almost went to camera in 2004 at one point. He ended up shutting down because, like, oh, the script was terrible. I didn't like the script was the same thing as before, except the time he's dressed as Mrs. Doubtfire, be close to Lydia's college. And he's right. He's like, what's the point of doing a sequel to this? We're just
Where's the heart?
Exact same thing.
Because the heart of this movie is what makes it. If you don't have that, why the fuck would you make it in the first place?
Doubtfire is the gag, but the theme of the movie, though, is
this guy just wants to be with his kids. His kids are the thing that gives him life.
The thing, kids are the thing that give him life. He needs to learn how to be a better man. But what I love about this, and I come from a family that's not fully together. I believe we share certain things in that, Justin. And so love my mom and my brother to death. Just gonna make that point clear.
Yeah.
But seeing this movie and seeing how Robin Williams is basically just like, he's in battle with himself. He thinks he's in battle with Pierce Brosnan. He thinks he's in battle with his wife. He thinks he's not. He's
in battle with his jealousy. He's in battle with the ways that he feels insufficient.
Exactly. It's they always say in stories it's very much like man versus environment, man versus man versus environment, man versus world, man versus self. And it's very much man versus self situation.
Yeah.
Because everything he's doing is at his own demise, but he's doing it because he wants to see his kids. And I understand. I'm not a parent, so obviously I'm not going to start saying that I understand things about kids and stuff like that. But
for this character in his and what we need for the movie, it all makes sense. Yeah,
it all makes sense. And seeing seeing certain elements to it, like we didn't have the same situation as the Hilliards in this movie. We didn't have the same like. There was let's put it like this. There was no hoping Daddy comes back. Let's just say that
100%.
We were all very far better off without him. But in this particular case, I'll obviously not going to make that point in '94. But what I do love is at the end of the movie, like even if there was any point where he wanted to be back with Miranda, and there was.
I think through the whole movie, he wanted to be back
until that end. Like he's like, you let them make that you let them make that hearing about me. You let them make that verdict about me. He didn't do anything. It's like I'm supposed to forget all this. And what I love is that moment where it's like he did become a better man, because guess what? He also grew some bloody self-esteem here too. Like what I love though is the ending. You don't see endings like that in movies of that era where the ending truly was. It's not them kissing and getting back together. Trust me, I've worked on enough hallmarks to know that's where most people think goes. But the idea that you can have what's important maintained.
Yeah, and you can still have a happy ending without having the Stepford perfect ending,
It's a very happy ending.
Yeah.
It's a very happy ending, and they don't get back together. And I do hope she gets together with Pierce Brosnan, because he actually was a great guy.
Because you know what? He loved those kids.
He loved those kids.
There's that conversation that he has, like, as an aside at the pool. And I think in most movies, they'd use that opportunity to go, like, oh yeah, this is where we prove that he's a dick, because he like talks to like his girlfriend.
I hate them kids.
Yeah, but he's just like, you know what? I'm getting to the age where like I have to think about, maybe I do want to like raise a little kid, and also like look at Mara Wilson. She melts my heart, and he says literally that, and he cares about these kids so much, and he cares about Miranda and her well-being, has for a number of years, but now's the opportunity to like go like, hey, what's.
And also at the end of the movie with Pierce Brosnan, when he said he could have, Robin Williams' character Daniel could have kept his cover.
Yeah.
Pierce Brosnan would have died from an allergic reaction.
Yeah.
But he actually went up, exposed himself by saving Pierce Brosnan, and even though everyone is horrified, Pierce Brosnan still says thank you. Because he shakes his hand, like he actually realizes that this man loves his kids and isn't the deadbeat that he thought he was.
Let's just hope that detail of him putting pepper all over his pepperless jambalaya, which, if you're allergic to pepper, why the fuck are you ordering a Creole dish? But that's just me.
But was he just choking?
He said he was allergic to peppers. Said he was allergic to peppers. Hopefully that fact never comes to the light of day. That
will
now. Pierce Brosnan, if you're reading this years after you read that script, I don't know.
You gotta redo that scene, Pierce. You gotta redo it. Justin says so.
So he gains employment in Mrs. Doubtfire, improves as a person, manages to rein in his kids and get some new chores rather than just be the fun parent out and about. There's the scene where the two eldest discover, oh, Mrs. Doubtfire is actually a man. Oh, is actually our dad, because he makes this odd decision to pee standing up in the other room, which. Wild to do that in drag while you're trying to maintain all this, and he's so careful at every other point that I'm just like, what was running through your head there?
Why did you lock the door?
Actually, yeah. I mean, I've got a lot of questions about that, but I think they just needed a fun pee gag and all that to unroll. When we get to the third act in this movie, so Daniel's been working at this TV station. He's been ripping into the boring programming they've had out and about to this guy that's down there. And that guy's the owner of the station.
Jack Lundy?
Jack Lundy, yes. So after a couple of asides here at the TV station, they decide to schedule a dinner at this great restaurant to pitch some ideas. Not once does this character jot down any ideas, but I think that reinforces everything we know about Daniel to this point.
Spontaneous, very flat. She says it. Miranda says it herself.
Yeah. Spontaneous, not really planning ahead, all that good stuff, which serves as his edge, but also is to his detriment. Which, again, for a lot of people in the film industry, I think you all understand this. Improv is where it's at, and just being in the moment, and just having it roll off the cuff is, I think where we kind of operate best in. So I can understand why he's not there. But also he's so focused on the Mrs. Doubtfire routine of it all that he doesn't know how to take that step and go like, okay, let's plan for this dinner. Meanwhile, while this dinner's getting planned, Stu, played by Pierce Brosnan, it's also his birthday dinner, and since Mrs. Doubtfire has become such a beloved figure in this family, is demanded that she be there. So the third act is just him running around this restaurant, going back and forth between these tables, getting sloshed with this producer, trying to like keep up appearances back at the table. And then it all ends up with this whole gag, literally, where Pierce Brosnan chokes on some shrimp, gets the Heimlich maneuver from Mrs. Doubtfire, and the mask literally slips. The way that Sally Fields melts down in this moment is just, it's terrifying. It's amazing and it's terrifying because she's like swapping back and forth. You read all of her emotions while she gets like half a line out, and you were her the whole time. You were her the whole time, back and forth of it all, and it's just like seeing the meltdown and like all the gears turn all at once. Because I imagine this Mrs. Doubtfire team is probably going on for like 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
At this point,
it
would actually be less than that because by the time comes that they have the hearing.
It's 90 days, right?
Yeah, but when they have the hearing, he says, I've acquired a place, had this job for 2 months now, which is ahead of schedule. So, yeah, months later, I think Mrs. Doubtfire was only there for like a month and a half or something like that.
Right.
But that's every single day, 5 days a week.
Yeah.
Now, one could argue that why would you bring the nanny if you pay $300 a week to dinner with you?
Yeah. Which $300 a week, even in 1990 money, seems like...
No, that's pretty decent back then.
That's pretty decent back then?
Decent enough to live, I think.
Well,
Keep in mind, the cost of living wasn't.
Yeah, true, yeah.
I would also counter your point with the fact that the mother in this household is going through a divorce. She's struggling to maintain everything with her kids.
Yeah.
So if you have a void in your life and you have this hole that's a hard thing to deal with, and somebody swoops in and they're managed to fix everything for you, and just coming home at the end of the day being like, oh, thank God dinner's on the table. Thank God this is happening. She was actually in a very vulnerable spot, and it's very human to latch on to someone who you think is a godsend.
Yeah, that's fair.
True, yeah.
So that's why I think she was invited, because she's like, you've helped us through this. Like, I want to celebrate with you. You become part of the family.
Yeah, fair.
I will say, in any case, you were right about this when we were watching Kayla. He should have never gone to that dinner. He should have never gone to that dinner.
Yeah.
But I will also say, as a huge fan of the 2 dates, 1 dance scenario in movies.
Yeah. It's such a great twist on a scene. Such a great twist on that setup of the scene. Yeah,
I'm a sucker for 2 dates, 1 dance scenarios, and anything about them. Community did a really good episode with that. BoJack Horseman did a really good episode with that. I'm a fan of 80s movies that do it earnestly. This one's a 90s movie. No different to me. I thought it was absolutely hilarious. And just the fact that this guy is just serving them double scotch after double scotch.
I think they each have like 4 double scotches by the end of it. So like it's very believable that he just forgets that he's in the full getup by the time he returns back to this producer's table. And he doesn't have a plan, but he has to try to like pivot this. Oh, I'm in drag. How do I explain this? Eventually gets him a show in the middle of all this. So the end of the movie ends up with him having his Mrs. Doubtfire show and still having like a link to the kids. Even though they're not on speaking terms for an indeterminate amount of time. Yeah,
I think it's fair to assume. I think after the whole incident at the restaurant, when we see Mrs. Doubtfire on TV, they're reminiscing about Mrs. Doubtfire and all that, and there's definitely a certain amount of time between when she's on TV at that moment and when Miranda is down at the studio. Because when she's down at the studio at this point,
they've been watching it every day for however long.
The number one at the time slot. They're like, so that to me is. And, he makes a big point where it's like, what does it matter if I only get to see them visited visit them once a week with supervision? It's like, I can't even hug my kids because I think something's wrong. But I do. And it's like, so no, I think that at this point, this is probably about 3-4 months later.
Yeah.
And that acting from Robin Williams in that scene with him and Sally Field when they're talking, and he's, man, there's a level of delicacy and earnestness to what he's saying in that, and the way he's performing it, that I'm just like,
it doesn't feel like it's not lines on a page. It's 2 people talking.
He said before that he feels he made the movie as a way to make up for not having time with his kids, with his career. Make of that as you will. There's definitely an argument to be made one way or the other about that. But what I'm saying though is that with that in mind, I have to wonder when this scene kind of came to point, and it's all about how he's valuing just every second he has with these children. Yeah, I don't feel like they always say these sorts of things like, "Oh, well, that wasn't the character, that was the person talking." And as much as I kind of, as much as I kind of, okay, whatever. Yeah, they are still a character. This is one of those moments, so I think you can make the argument where it's
where you can see the direct feelings he's drawing on. Well, I don't know Robin. We don't know Robin.
We don't know Robin.
But like, I think it's easy. I think it's easy to draw.
But in comparison to something like that, there's a TV show I watch called Hacks with Gene Smart and Hannah Einbinder. It's on HBO Max, Crave in Canada. Fantastic series, highly recommend. Season 3 is coming out soon. But Gene Smart in the second season had the scene where she goes to her assistant's dad's funeral.
Mm-hmm.
Jean Smart had buried her husband the week prior.
Oh my God.
And the week before shooting. And so this episode and this scene, you start seeing her tear up when they're talking about the other person's dad and all that stuff. And and this was a moment where apparently Jean Smart found that like this was an opportunity for her to actually start feeling the feelings that she didn't really feel the funeral before, because everyone's, she doesn't have a moment just to herself to think, because everyone's, how please, we want to be there for you, or all that. Yeah. And so obviously that's a very different sort of circumstance, but then she said that in this scene, when you're watching her talk about this man, she's like, I was talking about my husband. And that's what she said. And I can't help but feel this is one of those circumstances where Robin Williams is like, obviously, I don't know if he had whatever, like, supervised visitation, stuff like that. Yeah. Everything we understand from like Zelda Williams and all that, there doesn't seem to be that sort of stuff.
No, but just limited time. I mean, like Robin was an enormously busy actor.
I think the generation right now, the Generation Z, probably does not understand just how burned into our psyche he was in our generation.
Yeah. Because he was everywhere. He was everywhere. Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
I would argue like it's very rare you have a Robin Williams movie, for at least from the '90s, that is not seen as just an absolute classic now. Even the ones that like were not seen well back then, like Hook was not well received when it came out,
but it's a classic.
It's a classic.
Yeah,
no love Hook. Yeah, Robin Williams is fantastic.
Robin Williams launched the idea that you can hire a celebrity voice actor in an animated movie with
now. Say that as you will,
which effect that's had. Absolutely, positive or negative, he made that impact.
What he also did, and that's what Disney screwed him over too, because he said, "I'll need the movie, but I don't want my voice used in any toys, any of this. I don't want you using the genie to sell anything." But of course, as we all know, Disney followed exactly his wishes, never capitalized off genie again,
never ever. Yeah.
Let me watch Will Smith about that.
Yeah. Let's ask Dan Castellano what he feels about that. But I mean, you got to make cash.
I don't know. We're kind of Simpsons podcast in development right now, so I'll see if I can reach out to him and ask him.
I played a lot of Kingdom Hearts growing up, and I didn't, for the longest time, I was like, that's definitely not Robin Williams. Who the fuck is this? And I was like, no, it's very just definitely Homer. He does change his voice a little bit, but like, it's Homer to me. It's not a genie at all. Yeah, especially when you have someone with such like a vibrant voice range as Robin Williams, who never just did one voice when he played genie. He was constantly impersonating, the Jack Nicholson, or like doing like a little like a Vincent Price routine, or like all these little things, right? That I don't know, unless you are a comedy defining person of your generation or generations to come, you just can't play that role the same way.
I'd argue Bill Hader.
Bill Hader's, and I think impersonations, absolutely, yeah.
We missed an opportunity to see some sort of road trip movie or something with those two as a father and son.
Bill Hader and Robin Williams. That would have been amazing.
Oh God,
Bill Hader is one of the best and brightest working today. So.
Yes, yeah.
Now I would argue he's proven he has that charisma. Not the Robin Williams level, mind you, but I've seen him on. I've watched him
channeled in a different way.
Yeah. I watched him at SNL for years, and the movies he's done, and the absolutely incredible series Barry is not fully a comedy, but again, highly recommend anybody. Barry, Justin Barry.
Yes.
But with Bill Hader, though, I would say similar situation. I watched him for SNL for years. I saw that guy go manic, being Vincent Price in one moment, then being like this completely other character the next, and. We're not here to talk about Bill Hader, but I am saying, though, for in that echelon, he's the closest I can think of. But I like I said earlier, I think Robin Williams is up there with Shakespeare, so I'm not really
Yeah.
I'm not going to say that about a lot of
Shakespeare
actors.
didn't act.
No, he didn't act, but I'm saying...
He just wrote.
What I am saying
So Robin's even more of a complete threat, really.
He's out there with John Wilkes Booth. What? He was an actor.
Sure, yeah.
He was.
Yes.
He was actually quite a well-known actor, believe it or not.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't expect an Abraham Lincoln reference in this?
No. Not at all.
Is it too soon?
Mara Wilson. Can I talk about Mara Wilson for a second?
Absolutely.
Because like I think the other kids are just fine. I think they serve their purpose okay, but like I don't think you feel the heartbreak of these kids until Mara Wilson talks. She has like such this like she feels like she's like contained in this like I don't know. She's just got such like a slow, low way of talking that's like this pure innocence perspective that like everything she's feeling just like melts my heart when she talks on screen.
Right.
And I don't think he would have been able to sell where those kids were at without her. Like I said, the other two were okay, and I think
Joey Lawrence, Joey Lawrence especially, he's always been a very dependable actor. He played the son.
Yeah. And there you go. Yeah. Yeah, and these kids just make him out. You absolutely feel why Daniel feels this way about his kids, because they're just like the most precious. Oh my god.
Yeah, it's a good thing they were all pieces of shit.
Yeah. Would have been a very different movie, and I think you probably would have gone the route of like, okay, how's Daniel damaged his kids?
Yeah,
if you went that route.
I think we saw that movie actually in Robin Williams' highly underrated 2012 movie, World's Greatest Dad.
Oh, okay.
I have it on DVD. It is or on Blu-ray. It is such a good movie. It was Robin Williams is one of his last roles he ever did. Surely one of his last leading roles. He played a dad who loved his kid as much as loved his son, played by the actor who played Junie in Spy Kids.
Oh, okay.
He loves his son so much. He's a very present father. He's a single father. He's a very present father. He's very there, hands-on. His son is so unbelievably disrespectful to him and literally everybody else. And then what happens is the son, played by Junie Spy Kids. Junie. So Junie at one point, he's he's perverted. He's always saying really crass and derogatory things to girls at school. He's obsessed with porn. He's just like, whatever, fuck you, dad, stuff like that. Just no part of him is good. And he loves his son. And then one day his son kills himself accidentally by autoerotic asphyxiation. So Robin Williams trying to make the best. I understand I'm spoiling this movie right now, but it's just for Robin Williams who's a creative writing teacher and a failed author. He doesn't want his son's death. He cries. He has a son in his hand. He cries, and he realizes that he can't let people know that his son died from autoerotic asphyxiation. So he writes a suicide note for his son. The suicide note. Suicide note all of a sudden is like, this boy was a poet. He was just like, now all of a sudden his son is becoming this like incredibly, he's like, oh my god, his suicide note has gone to the news and everything like that. Well, students at school love it. It went with the internet.
Yeah.
So he's like, wow,
maybe I have a writing career.
They said, like, your son was such a great writer. He goes, well, I believe he kept a journal as well.
Oh no.
So Robin Williams takes the opportunity to be this famous writer on the back of his son's falsified suicide by writing a full-on journal in his style, becomes a bestseller. His dad goes on like The View, becomes a celebrity. There's elements here where I think we see exactly how this would go in a different direction. Oh my god, the foundation these kids have, and it's the same. It's in a lot of ways a similar character. I'd say it's a mix between the character of the character of Daniel Hilliard and his character from the fantastic Dead Poets Society.
That is horrifying. It makes me wonder what terrible deranged depth someone had to go to be in that. And honestly, it makes me lose faith in the world. Where do I watch this? Sounds great. Yeah.
Written and directed by Bobcat Goldthwait.
Hold on.
Bobcat Goldthwait, please, God. You know that guy? Yeah, you wrote and directed it.
Heck yeah.
So, back to Mrs. Doubtfire.
Yes.
We go off track sometimes with that show. Back to Mrs. Doubtfire, you're talking about Mara Wilson, and I am very happy you are. I love Mara Wilson as an actor, and I also love her as a social media person. She has no problem just ripping on any right wingers, ripping on transphobes. I mean, her cousin is freaking Ben Shapiro, so it's like
Yeah.
And I love that fact because she just rips on him on social media constantly.
Yeah.
Could not find two people on further ends of the political spectrum.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and she's right now with the fight for WGA. And I'm actually just taking a moment here to praise Mara Wilson for a sec. She's doing with the SAG Actors Guild. Sorry, not the SAG Actors Guild, but with the SAG striking right now due to studios being completely greedy and not paying them exactly what they deserve and helping them protect their careers. Just trying to make that point clear.
Yes.
Mara Wilson came out recently. She's talking about how she's like, I appeared as a Disney princess in a live action thing, and I have had this much money given to it. I think it was like something like $13 of residuals. She's like, I had a recurring role on one of the most critically acclaimed animated series of all time. And she's like, and she showed her residual for that, and I think it was something like $10 since it came out.
Oh my god.
Like Jill Pill of BoJack Horseman.
Yeah.
BoJack freaking Horseman, and that character was a big character for her episodes on that show, and they're trying to say that she doesn't deserve her proper residuals. Just got to point out, if we're going to bring up Mara Wilson, I got to bring up what she's saying about the
Absolutely, yeah.
Go Mara, man.
Yeah.
Go Mara. And I loved her in this, and this movie wasn't very far from, and I have to imagine this movie got her Matilda.
Yeah,
I have to imagine that's what happened, right?
It also got Pierce Brosnan, James Bond.
Yes, it did.
It did.
Really? Chris Columbus. Okay, so Chris Columbus was a big fan of Pierce Brosnan from the show Remington Steel. Yeah, 1980s show, very sort of Bond influence, right? And that was big. And that at the time was the show that people would be like, oh my god, this guy should be the next James Bond.
Yeah.
They wanted Timothy Dalton. So what it was that during this movie, Chris Columbus barely said to Pierce Brosnan, hey, I love you, Remington Steel. You absolutely should have been James Bond. He's like, oh, yes, well, Pierce Brosnan. Do the Pierce Brosnan thing. But time goes on, they shoot the movie, has a great time with Brosnan. He's not cracking even near Robin Williams, except for one quick moment during the teeth bit when he finally gets the teeth out there. If you look at Pierce Brosnan, you see his lips just crack a little bit of a smile.
He's able to keep icy and just the entire
so
time.
Much that
against
subtleness was
like against a comedic titan.
Yeah.
Giving one of the best bits of his career. Yeah.
Oh man, right? And so what happened was Chris Columbus found out that Timothy Dalton's leaving the Bond franchise. He's the one that called the Broccoli's. I was like, you need to audition Pierce Brosnan. Like, get Pierce Brosnan in the audition room. I'm telling you right now,
he will give you so much more than what you're looking for. Yeah.
Then we had Goldeneye. So
yes.
There you go, man. Like I that always found it kind of funny now that Groundhog's Day effectively created Pierce Brosnan as Bond.
One to the next and then to the other, I suppose.
Which Chris Columbus would not have been able to do if he did not write Gremlins in the first place. Just saying. Okay.
Gremlins is actually the Rosetta Stone to all modern filmmaking that we know now. Howard Shore did the score to this movie as well as a tie to Lord of the Rings, and those strings really complement San Francisco. Fuck, that city's beautiful in this movie.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah.
My God, is it beautiful. And the way they use the framework, the framing work of the streets and everything, they really know the best way to shoot that. Howard Shore, just beautiful music throughout this movie. And these comedy movies, especially from this era, I don't know if you remember the 90s and the 80s. I don't know if you ever remember these sorts of movies from the era where the music always had like I think Back to the Future had a lot of influence on this because all of a sudden Back to the Future uses the power of love. And now for the next 8 years, so many of these movies feel the need to have this like kind of Huey Louie-esque, but not a forward Huey Louie in the news.
Yeah.
It's like, you'd expect these movies to be like, okay, well, I'm gonna go down now to the laundromat or something like that. And from his Doubtfire, you'd expect to hear something like, someone is like, in my head, I hear synths. But But here, the needle drops are great. Dude looks like a lady. All that was fun.
It's such a great scene. Such a great little montage.
You are right about the Howard Shore score, though.
Yeah, there's going back to the earnestness in this movie. Yeah. He adds that earnestness element. There's just something about every time I watch Lord of the Rings, every time that I hear those sweeping strings with little bits of brass, but mostly the sweeping strings, it just it makes me want to weep. I see these beautiful occasions and I see these characters in the middle of this, and that score helps ground all that earnestness in the moment.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I'm just in love with it. I'm just in love with it. Also, go Canadian composers. Yeah. Yeah. Go Canadian composers. Yeah.
Wait, what?
Yeah. He composed for Cronenberg for a while, actually, way back when. Yeah.
Howard Shore's Canadian?
Yeah.
I did not know this.
Look him up. Yeah.
I will after this podcast. Because I don't believe you, Justin.
Well, believe it, man. Believe it.
I actually did have one scene that I really liked, speaking specifically from a costumes perspective. I loved them changing in and out of the suit. And then when
Yeah.
they just hold a camera on him and they have to speed it up. Because we were talking about that would have taken for so long.
If you look at the shot, it slowly speeds up as he goes because it's like, and because like by the time you get to the point where he's taking off the whole bodysuit and all that, like it's going so fast that his hands are basically going to like cartoon levels of speed.
Yeah.
That's just because they had to get through the shot.
Otherwise, you'd be here for like another 2 minutes trying to get everything down. Yeah.
I don't think his costume and makeup and face and everything, it's part of his comedic process. Like it's not, he looks perfect in every scene. I love that you actually show how much effort goes into putting a man in the suit.
It's not easy.
No.
It's not easy. Like the practical suit that they actually put on him, it was like a 3-hour process when they shortened it down to get all the latex work down on him, you know. So at least 3 to 4 hours in the chair before he even hops on for at least the bulk of this movie. I'd say it's like half the time he's in that suit, right?
Oh yeah.
And there's multiple scenes where he's like half in and then half out of it. Like even just like something that looks as simple as like his apartment when he has the social worker come by. I can imagine that they would be quite interrupted midway through just to get him in and out of it. Yeah. And that poor mask that falls down and gets slammed by the truck.
Oh no.
Let's see.
That was apparently the hardest shot in the movie.
Really? Yeah. To get it to like float down just the right way.
Apparently it took like 20 or 30 takes or something like that.
Oh, to get it to like flutter down in just the right way. Yeah. I mean, those shots are always take the longest.
Yes, they do.
Yeah,
they're never
as someone that's had to bowl many of props to sit just perfectly in frame. Yeah, you usually do a lot about that many times.
Why do they play back? For whatever reason, phone inserts can take fucking 20-30 minutes to set up for like a 10-second insert.
For them, just like thumbing on the phone and just text.
Like a text message without any interaction. It'll be like, okay, I lay properly. You gotta mix this. Insert
30 backwards.
Yeah, insert you interaction kind of fun. Yeah, for that reason.
Greg Cannon, the guy behind the special effects, makeup in this thing, has 5 Academy Awards, and oh my fucking god, it shows. Again, if you guys haven't seen this movie, which, what are you doing right now? Go watch Mrs. Doubtfire and come back. He really just has a full transformation. He is a completely different person in that makeup and bodysuit and everything. Only betrayed by like little bits of hair sometimes sticking out from under his long sleeves. And you go and watch the behind the scenes when they're doing camera tests. And he really is finding the voice and finding all these little eccentricities of this character while bits and pieces of the prosthetics are going on. Again, Robin just played, you know.
Yeah.
He saw himself in the mirror, become this person, and then the voice followed, right? It's just astounding to me that they got to this point.
Well, actually, I want to lead into that part with special effects in this because you don't really think about movies like this and think about the effects that little. We were watching Day in the Dead the other day on Last Drive-In with Joe Bob Briggs.
Mm-hmm.
And, that was Tom Savini, who was obviously considered like the legend of effects, right?
Yeah.
So it's interesting because I'm a big horror fan, as you know, and so all of my love effects comes from that. I always forget, though, you get these scenes like this.
Mm-hmm.
With Mrs. Doubtfire, where this truly is a transformative special effects process. So much so that apparently Robin Williams would go around buying things in characters to see if people would notice them. And like, apparently he would go, his favorite thing to do when they were like on lunch and all that, apparently he would go to local sex shops and buy dildos dressed as.
Love that. Yeah.
And it's like, that is such a Robin Williams thing to do.
Yeah.
Of course you would.
Live in absurdism.
Yeah, right. It's like, my apologies, the name of the effects artist.
Greg Cannon.
Thank you. Or Greg Academy Awards. And what other films did he do before this?
Well, later on he did Bicentennial Man afterwards. I don't have the list down. Also Rob Williams.
Very underrated film.
I hadn't seen it actually. Yeah,
give it a shot. It's certainly underrated, and it's aged weirdly considering it's supposed to be this like futurist thing, but it only takes place in 2005.
Oh, that's
because when you got like 98, 99, and thought, well, no, 2005 we're gonna fly in cars. Yeah, 2006 year, guys. That's when flying cars are coming
and robots. Yeah, geez. I guess like a very Z-Rust 50s future. I guess
you would think, but no, it's trying to go for realistic modern.
I would hate it if we had flying cars.
Oh man, people can't drive on the damn road.
A flying car is great if you're the only person with a flying car. Mm-hmm. You're still going to have air traffic. It's still going to take just as long to get somewhere.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And like, you think we have an emissions problem now? Could you imagine if we actually had everyone flying? What emissions would it take to get a car off the ground in the first place? But neither here nor there. We're not here to solve the energy crisis. We're here to talk about movies.
That's
Yeah.
That's pretty. I just want to say though, because that is fascinating, because it's not the sort of genre that you usually see these sorts of like feats of achievement in.
Yeah.
We worked on Star Trek Beyond, right?
Yeah.
We worked on a movie where there was literally 2 12-hour makeup teams and it was a 24-hour cycle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because of all the aliens. So to think about just the level of, and we maybe that's taken for granted sometimes in certain genres, and it really shouldn't have. Star Trek Beyond should have won the Oscar that year for the effects, for effects makeup. But in a case like this, so yeah, it's like you really do have this movie that, with a different script, this would be a thriller. With a different actor, this wouldn't work as a character, as we discussed earlier with Tim Allen.
Even if you didn't have Sally Fields in that role,
even if like didn't have Sally Fields,
because without her providing this backbone that is, I don't know, stronger than Daniel's case, in most times.
Yeah.
Then I don't think you'd be able to get the balance between these two characters' perspectives to be able to get to that type of happy ending we get to at the end there.
Because with those two as well, like, it comes right down to the actor as well, as you're saying, because between Sally Field and Robin Williams, this is a very, for comedy, you're walking a very delicate line with the story in this comedy, and it has to work in a certain way. And look at this movie now, that nowadays we're talking about this movie, like going on almost 30 years later. Yeah, we're talking about this movie now in this podcast, and the fact is that when we talk about this movie, there's been arguments about if it was damaging to the transgender movement or stuff and such like that. And the unfortunate truth is, in the early 2010s, the Republicans started using pictures of Mrs. Doubtfire to make fun of transgender people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's a fact. It happened.
Yeah.
What I love is that we can still see this movie nowadays, and it hasn't been tampered by all that. It hasn't been tainted by all this hate that it could have created. We can actually just see this movie in 1994 of Robin Williams just really wanting something, and what he'll do to get what he feels he is earned, he is owed, which in this movie is simply just the ability to see his kids. Yeah. And it's that earnestness of the story. And I know we're using the term earnest a lot, but it's like,
no, but earnest is the mood of this movie. I don't think anything's done in an overtly cynical fashion.
Yeah.
In this movie at all. Yeah.
And that's the thing. There's not really any bad people in this. No. Like, even the character Stu in any other movie, Stu would have been just an asshole. Yeah. Like,
if this were an early 2000s comedy, absolutely would have been. Yeah.
Well, Stu would have been Ted in Jingle All the Way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Where it's like the moment the mother's gone, it's like, shut the hell up. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
But in this situation, though, just the idea that even with him, like, I loved how this movie approaches things just from the perspective of reality.
You don't need a bad guy in a script necessarily.
Yeah.
I like that both of the parents are making mistakes, and you can definitely see from his wife's perspective how she thinks he's a bad father, or he would not be able to take care of it. Not a bad father. He's not responsible enough to take care of his kids is what I think she feels. But then at the same time, they've been divorced for a week and she's already bringing a new guy home to meet her kids.
Yeah. As much as they set up in that initial scene where they meet in the office, this is like an old flame situation. Yeah, it is a bit, but also like she's been feeling let down by this relationship she's been in for 14 years by the end of it. And I think, all these feelings are fresh. They've all just been well baked, and that scene was just the breaking point. And, she's trying to be professional. She's trying to be professional at that dinner that they have. But he's like, oh, hey, no, let's check in. She's trying to talk about, the painting palette. And it's just like, oh, yeah, so how have you been? How have you been keeping? Oh, you're still gorgeous. All that stuff. So, I don't know, he's chasing it, and she's not saying no, but I think is just in the like, no, you're being a supportive presence in my life right now. You want to come out and say hi. Sounds great.
But then they do start dating.
Yeah. But like, I think it's...
I don't know. It's an interesting perspective, and I think it does kind of lend itself to the idea that nobody here is totally good, totally bad.
100%.
It's adults all making decisions, some of them good, some of them bad, and the lesson in the end is you got to think about the children.
Yes, and that's the most important thing. Again, comes back to the heart and earnestness.
And that was the point that I was trying to come to, is that she, as a flawed human, does not see how introducing this man to her children could actually hurt them because of how it would feel like she's replacing their father. She's considering her own feelings. She's got her own anger towards this man. Yeah. She loves her children, but she's got blinders on in some areas where I don't think people, even in that era, realize the effects of like just moving on so quickly without actually checking in with your kids first.
Yeah.
And she also, like, I don't think she's wrong for dating. Like you were saying, the feelings are baked in, but I feel like the good or better way to do that would be like she goes on dates with him, but she doesn't bring him near her kid. She's not taking him to the pool with the nanny. Her husband, after the divorce, has been given 3 months to get his act together. She's not even giving him a chance to do that, regardless of what he's doing. She is not giving him the chance before introducing someone who might be better than him at life. Basically.
I do agree with you there. Like, and that's what I'm saying. I think this, on every side here, there's people doing things that are the wrong choices, and the wrong things, but they're never for the wrong reasons, and they're never for nefarious or selfish reasons. I do think there's a legitimate thought process to everything that happens in this movie, and I think it's reasonable to see where people in these circumstances make these decisions. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the heart comes in. It's and I bring it back to that conversation he has with her at the end of the movie, where it's like, you kind of make it clear that, you're not innocent here, Miranda. Like, you guys are both, these are two peas to a pod. It takes two to tango, and the tango dance didn't work well. It's not exactly all him. It's not all you, but it is a mix of both of you, and both of you have lost sight of what's the most important thing here: your children.
And that is the most important part about this movie. It never forgets that that's the most important part of what they're trying to say. And that's why I love Mrs. Doubtfire.
And that is also our time. So, Justin, thank you so much for coming to the show. For anybody listening, if you look at our descriptions and you look at the links, we have Mrs. Doubtfire on Blu-ray, Prime Rental, DVD. We have links at the bottom. Justin, anything you'd like to say before you take off?
Thanks for having me aboard, and I hope you all appreciate Robin Williams just a little bit more after this podcast.
Oh, thank you kindly.